Let me start with Pauline Harmse. Pauline Harmse is Anine Booysen's aunt. Now, Anine Booysen, of course, being the 17-year-old girl who died of these injuries inflicted on her. Pauline, hello.
Hello.
Hi, I really thank you very much. I know how difficult it is for the family to be on the radio talking about this thing this morning. But again, our condolences to the family. Just tell me what the family is feeling at the moment about this horrific crime.
It's terrifying for all of us because the youth shock. We didn't expect something like that to happen to her.
What information do you have? What happened on Saturday, over the weekend?
All the information that I have, because I wasn't here in the weekends in Bradasdorp, but my mom phoned me on Saturday and she told me that Anine was raped, and then they cut her stomach and right through her legs. Then I didn't know what to say, so I was just shocked because my mom, she was taking it very badly. She didn't even don't know how to explain it to me what really happened, you see. But her mom, she was in a state.
Apparently, Anine was... Yeah, of course. Continue.
Because she went to the pub with her friends, then she decided to went home. So on her way home, they attacked her.
I was just saying that apparently before she passed on, she was able to identify some of the suspects. Are they known to the family?
Yeah, the one, we knew him very well.
So one of the suspects is known to the family?
Yeah.
Do you mind telling me the relationship between the suspect and the deceased, if that's not compromising yourselves legally?
They had a good relationship. We were all friends.
You know him as well?
Yeah, I do know him as well.
How do you feel about that?
I'm feeling really bad about it because I can't imagine something like that happening to a person. Or for me as well, I have a daughter. If something like that happened to her, I don't know. You see?
But what kind of a person was Anine?
She was a loving person. She had a huge respect for all of us, our family. She was not a talkative person, but if she wants to talk to you, then she talks to you, laughing with you, making jokes with you. She was willing to go to places where you said her to do something. She was like that.
At a personal level, and perhaps also on behalf of the family, what would you like to see happen as a result of this crime?
All that we want is that for the persons who did it to her to go behind bars.
And what do you think needs to happen in order to deal with the scourge?
We as community, we must stand together, stand up against these crimes.
All right. Pauline, I've got to thank you very much. Thanks indeed for coming through. Nomawetu, you were working the story. What details do you have? What happened?
Well, Polani, from what we understand, Anine was walking back from a nearby tavern. That's when a group of men attacked her. They managed to overpower her. They dragged her to a nearby construction site, and that's where they raped her and left her to die. Now, a security guard at the construction site found her, and luckily the 17-year-old was still alive. That's when an ambulance was called, and she was rushed to a hospital. Now, we also spoke to her mother yesterday, clearly still in shock. She explained to us just what her daughter looked like when she saw her lying in hospital for the first time after the attack. She says all her fingers were broken, her legs were broken, her stomach had been cut open. You could see her intestines. Her throat was also slit open. She says if she was in such a bad state that you could hardly recognize her. if she hadn't seen her shoes, then she would, as her mother, then she would have also had trouble actually recognizing her. Now, eventually she had to give the doctors the go-ahead to switch off the machines, as there was nothing more they could do for her. Now, nurses and doctors at the hospital where she was transferred say this was one of the worst rape victims they had seen in many years.
Kathleen Day, you've heard the details, the little bit that we've been able to get so far. Your reaction, please.
It's overwhelming. I feel so much pain and grief on behalf of this family. You have to be very strong to feel other people's pain, but you also have to be strong and courageous to feel your own. And perhaps that's what we as a nation have to do. We have to feel their pain and we have to feel our own pain, which is perhaps even harder. You asked her some very difficult questions, and the last few days I've been in a summit with the Department of Social Development and with other NGOs working in this sector. And the victim empowerment sector in the Western Cape is very strong, but there are huge problems facing us, mainly to do with the allocation of resources. I don't think it's any secret that the NGO sector is very underfunded at the moment. It's very hard for us to do prevention work. It's very hard for us to do work that empowers victims and their families. And although I think government is recognizing this more and more as time goes by, there isn't a quick fix. They can't turn this around in an instant. It's going to take a long time. And as Pauline said, communities have to stand together, and government and NGOs and CBOs, community-based organizations, have to be very, very careful and thoughtful about how they involve communities in this work, because that, I think, is where the answer lies.
Kari, your reaction for me, please.
I think it's an absolute tragedy. And, you know, as a representative of the 1 in 9 campaign, I really send out our condolences and real sympathy to the family of Anene. I think that you can hear even in the voice, you know, how this is hitting the family, and the aunt in particular. You know, I think though, and I agree with what Kathleen is saying. I think that there is a funding crisis. I also think though that there's a crisis of political will in this country to deal with rape and sexual violence. So, you know, I think that time and again we see examples of this, where we see people in leadership positions saying things perhaps that indicate a commitment, and then doing things that are quite different. So particularly around this case, I was interested to read the MEC of Social Development's comments around the rape and what he said in response to it. And perhaps this was only one of the things he said, but the thing that was reported on was him saying, you know, that we want to urge our boys, our young men and women to ensure that they don't get into situations at 3 a.m. in the morning. Now, I just feel that that is not an appropriate response from our leadership. Our leadership should be tasking themselves with making our communities, our streets safe at whatever time of the day. But also what perhaps it indicates is just the extent to which our leadership really has not understood how sexual violence happens in this country. And so I think that a lot more needs to be done. I agree that at community level, that at every level, in fact, there's a role for us to play in ensuring that, firstly, when rape does happen, that we actually are able to support survivors adequately and appropriately, but secondly, that all the way through, if it is in a court case, that in fact justice is done there, but also that justice happens in a number of different sites where, survivors have been harmed and damaged.
Right. Mbuyiselo, just pick up on the issue of the leadership's understanding of sexual violence in this country. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think, Colin, much needs to happen. But also let me say from Sonke that our heartfelt condolences when Kolani. I think if the MEC indeed has said what it is alleged that he has said, Kolani, it is a sad day, because it's not different to, saying that what was she wearing? Why was she walking in the night, in the morning? Because, that presupposes that she is in fact guilty. She should not have been at that place. These are extremely insensitive, inappropriate, questions that in this day and age one does not expect. But Xolani, having said that, I think it's critical that what the family member was saying about mobilizing communities, mainly to say the one man can. Xolani, you see, we as a country, I wonder, why are we not outraged? Why are we not outraged? Where things would come to a virtual standstill. I wonder, sitting here, Xolani, is it because this is normal? Is it because that we shrug our shoulders and say, well, it's one of those things? The sad thing is that, Xolani, these could have a possibility of even paralyzing us to no action. But our view is that, Xolani, it should in fact encourage us to say, where are the men? Where are the fathers? Why don't we join hands and say, not in our name, so far, no further? Xolani, because we could do so much, all of us, especially men, if we join hands and then do 365 days, so that it's not only a pure, empty slogan, that we don't only do slogans, but we say, focus that the one man can. How do we do these programs in our communities?
Troy Martins, you mentioned that this may very well be a catalyst, but are there signs that this nation has had enough of this and that this nation is willing to use this as a turning point?
Xolani, I think it's encouraging that every one of the speakers here is on the same page. We're all saying we need to unite as a nation and stand up and say enough is enough. And again, condolences to the family. But, Anine has lost her life. This is a 17-year-old girl. And I believe that this has caused enough outrage for us to be able to say we will not tolerate this anymore. And it's, we can play the blame game. I think that the comments made by the Western Cape MEC are completely inappropriate. At the same time, we can't politicize an issue like this. We need to come together as a nation now and say, work together, and say we've had enough. And I think it really speaks to socializing our children differently. We have to ask ourselves some very difficult questions as a nation. Why is rape so prevalent in our society? And we have to ask ourselves, is it a question of patriarchy? Is it a question of it's socially acceptable? The question of respect for women? We need to come up with these answers